Tom Bauer just found out about one of the strangest age mysteries in recent royal history. In his words, the Meghan that everyone got to know, the shiny Hollywood actress who became a duchess, wasn't exactly the same woman that the records showed. Somewhere between Los Angeles and London, the years just didn't match up. And when Meghan's own dad, Thomas Markle, started talking about his daughter's early life, things got even weirder. This wasn't just rumors. It wasn't random internet talk. It was the uncomfortable truth coming out from people who actually knew her. From a dad who raised her two reporters who checked her official documents. Because if these papers are right, Meghan Markle isn't 44 years old. She might actually be several years older than what the world was told. And if that's true, everything about her royal story changes. When most dads talk about their daughters, you hear love in their voices. But when Thomas Markle talks about Meghan, there's something heavier, like a man trying to fix the story before it's too late. He remembers a childhood full of theater, big dreams, and drive. But when Meghan became famous, he noticed something that didn't add up. The story she told everyone about her timeline when she graduated. When she started acting, even how old she was when she got her first big role didn't match what he remembered as her father. Thomas wasn't yelling about it. He was speaking slowly, carefully, almost like he was giving evidence in court. He hinted that Meghan wasn't as young as the palace said she was, that her official birth year might have been changed. And those words, coming from a father, hit differently. They weren't the kind you could brush off as gossip. They came from someone who'd once held her baby pictures in his hands, someone who remembered dates and big moments, not from magazines, but from real life. When he mentioned that the Meghan he raised didn't quite match the timeline the palace was pushing, it opened up the first crack in her royal image. And that's where the paper trail starts. March 1997. Teenagers all across America are looking through 17 magazine, the popular magazine for high school girls dreaming about college, careers, and fame. Buried deep inside that issue on page 90, there's a small list of names. One of them says Meghan Markle, age 21. At first, it looks like nothing, just another name in a long list of wannabe stars. But when you stop and do the math, it becomes shocking. If Meghan was really born on August 4, 1981, she would have been 15 years old in March 1997, not 21. That's a 6-year difference, not a typo. A full 6-year gap between the official record and what was printed in a magazine sold all across the country. Now, this isn't some random internet rumor. This is actual ink on paper, a document published, sold, and saved decades before Meghan ever became a duchess. You can still flip to that page today, and the number is right there staring back at you. If that magazine was right, then the whole foundation of her story, her school years, her Hollywood timeline, her young actress image, all shift by years. It would mean Meghan wasn't a 20-something chasing her dream when she started acting. She was closer to 30, already a woman rewriting her place in an industry obsessed with young people. The mystery gets deeper because, if the 17 record is true, the Meghan we've seen in the news might be 6 years older than the palace, the press, and even her own life story claim. And here's where things start to get even more twisted. Because if the timeline doesn't fit, if her real age doesn't match the records, then how exactly was she able to have Archie and Lilibet? Think about it. The weddings, the babies, the life she built with Prince Harry. We're getting to that soon. But first, let's take a closer look at how this double timeline started. Side by side, the contradiction becomes impossible to ignore. Version 1. The official record, Meghan Markle, born August 4, 1981. That makes her 44 years old in 2025. This version shows up everywhere in palace files, online biographies, and royal press releases. It's written like it's set in stone. Version 2, the magazine record, Meghan Markle, 21, in 1997. That shifts her birth year to around 1975 or 1976, meaning she'd be close to 50 today. That's not just a small detail. That's a 6-year rewrite of who she is. Think about what that means. It changes how old she was when she graduated, when she first got acting jobs, and even when she met Prince Harry. If she was born in the mid-70s, she wasn't a rising 36-year-old actress when she married into the royal family. She was a woman in her early 40s, stepping into one of the world's most watched institutions. This is where the ink versus pencil comparison really matters. Ink is permanent, like a birth certificate. pencil can be erased, redrawn, adjusted, like an image. The world was given the ink version of Meghan's story. But that 17 magazine record that was pencil, faint, forgotten, but still visible if you look close enough. And so, between a father's words, an old magazine's files, and a 6-year gap that won't go away, the mystery starts to take shape, not as gossip, but as a puzzle of public records, each one whispering that the Duchess of Sussex might have more years behind her than anyone knew. But if that's true, then where else have the records been changed? And who made sure they were? Now, let's talk about the one thing royal PR can't edit, the pregnancies. In a new tell-all, Tom Bower claimed that Meghan Markle's carefully polished story around Archie's birth wasn't just inconsistent, it was made up. And for the first time, he wasn't alone. According to someone who worked inside Portland Hospital, someone who was actually in those halls, the official version of events, as told in Prince Harry's book, Spare, didn't line up with how things really work behind those closed doors. Harry's book painted a movie-like picture: 2 epidurals, a peaceful environment, a quick recovery, and the couple leaving within 2 hours to go back to Frogmore Cottage. It sounded calm, controlled, perfect. But anyone familiar with childbirth, especially inside private hospitals like Portland, could see the problems right away. Because Portland Hospital isn't a spa, it's a medical facility with strict recovery rules, especially for high-risk mothers. And those 2 epidurals, doctors say that's almost impossible. Epidurals are continuous, not something you get twice like pain pills. So, if Harry's story was accurate, then either medical rules were broken, or the story was never meant to sound medically believable in the first place. What started as a fairy tale birth was about to fall apart into something way stranger. A story that no longer fit inside the royal script. Here's where it gets interesting. Harry's story claims Meghan gave birth, recovered, and was home at Frogmore Cottage within 2 hours. But the drive from Portland Hospital to Frogmore alone takes about an hour, sometimes more. That means everything, delivery, recovery, monitoring, discharge, would have had to fit inside a single hour. Add 2 epidurals into that window, and the story falls apart completely. Because every woman who's ever gotten one knows you can't walk, let alone leave, right away. You wait for the numbing medicine to wear off, your vital signs to stabilize, and your blood pressure to go back to normal. And that's just under perfect conditions. If, as sources claim, Meghan was dealing with high blood pressure or early signs of preeclampsia, she wouldn't have been sent home at all. It's the kind of timeline that belongs in a fairy tale, not a hospital record book. And yet, it's the version the world was told, sealed, signed, and delivered with royal shine. Some people say that's when the story stopped being about medicine and started being about damage control. Every medical record points to one fact: Meghan's pregnancy was geriatric. That's the clinical term for expecting mothers over 35. That's not mean. It's a risk category. It requires closer monitoring, fewer risks, and full-time medical supervision during labor. So when Harry described birthing balls, candles, and a wellness retreat setup, doctors everywhere were shocked. That's not how high-risk births are handled. According to the Hospital Insider, Portland doesn't do spa births for mothers marked as high. The setup Harry described, warm lights, water tub, birthing ball, would never have been allowed for someone under close obstetric monitoring. It's not carelessness, it's protocol. And then came the mention of preeclampsia, one of the most dangerous complications a mother can face. For anyone who's been through it, the treatment is brutal. Magnesium sulfate, blood pressure control, and around-the-clock monitoring, not scented candles. So, if Meghan truly suffered from that condition, as has been suggested, her reported 2-hour turnaround from delivery to discharge isn't just unlikely, it's medically impossible. By the time you reach the end of this trail, the pattern becomes clear. Every version of Archie's birth, from the epidurals to the candles. The secret elevator to the 2-hour homecoming seems touched not by truth, but by performance. Tom Bower called it out as lies. The Hospital Insider backed it up with real experience. And between their stories lies a gap the palace can't seem to fill, a silence louder than any denial. Maybe the contradictions aren't mistakes. Maybe they're on purpose. Because when you build a royal image on perfection and grace, you can't afford messy details. You can only afford edits. And so perhaps Archie's birth wasn't meant to be remembered as it was, but as it needed to look flawless, magical, controlled. But beneath that shine lies the pulse of something raw, a story that doesn't fit, a script that doesn't work, and a truth that won't stay hidden. Because if the fairy tale doesn't line up, then maybe it was never a fairy tale at all. Maybe it was the kingdom's most ambitious rewrite, one where birth, age, and image were all drawn in pencil, waiting for someone brave enough to tilt the page toward the light. And now that light is here, because once you've seen the lines beneath the ink, you can never unsee them again.